Հարկելի բարեկամներ, բարի եք եկած մեր տունը, ինչպես նաև ձեր տունն ելնալ են, և այս ցերնարգասերին, որ այս տարվա այս տարեշրջանի առաջին ցերնարկն, որ կազմակերպված է հայցանի դեղական հանձնախումբի և մեր հարաբերական հանձնախումբի համատեղ աշխատանքներով։ Եվ մենք ուրախ ենք, որ այսօրվա մեր բանախոսը պարոն Միսակ Քելեշյանն է, որ հավանաբար հրճագին դեղյակ եք և իր գործին ամդեղյակ եք, եթե չեք արդեն քիչ վերջը լայնորեն կծանոթանաք իր տարած աշխատանքներում։ Ինքը պիտի խոսի հայ որդերու մասին և քիչ վերջը պարոն Քելեշյանը ավելի մանրամասնություններ կտա, սակայն ես մեկ բան կուզեի ասել, վերջին անգամ երբ որ Լիբանան էի, այցելեցի թե Ղազիլի շրջան կամ Քյուրը և ուր որբանոց դարայգոտ 15-ին մեջ հայ որբանոց դարման ատկևեջ քանի կիլոմետրանտին անթուրայի որբանոցը որ այցելեցին, անթուրան սկանչելի պարծունքի դեսարան մգը պարծկի իր արջևը, ջունիի ծոցի պարծունքին վրա է, եծեր արջև ամբողջությամբ ջունիի ծոցը միջև իրականը իր կեղեցությամբ կպայլի և թիջվար է երևակայել թեղատկեց 100 մետր անտին նույն այդ որբանոցի մեկ մասը գարակնադի լրացված է մեր երեխաներու, որբացած երեխաներու ոսկորներուն, աջույներուն դարդանված երևույթով։ Ուրեմն առանց ավելի մեջ մտնելու, որտեղ մեր խոսողը պարոն Քելեշյանն է, հիմա գրադել են պարոն Նշան Փյուլիկյանը հայտարարի փորձավարը, որպեսզի ներկայացնի մեր դուրը։ Նշան։
Պարոն Մորիս Միսակ Քելեշյանը արհեստով էլեկտրական ճարտարապետ է, electrical engineer։ Միևնույն ադեն մասնակցած է համաշխարհային անթել հետևողության, wireless tracking և monitoring-ի և արժեքավոր դերակցություններ հավաքելու աշխատանքի մեջն է։ Շատ ընդարձակ փորձառություն ունի այս ասպարեզի մեջ և հմուտ է անոր արևդրական գործածության, մանավանդ commercial application-ին։ Ասկեզան պարոն Քելեշյան անգախ և ինքնավար հետազոտիչ է և մեծ գիրքով չպատնված պատմություններ և անվախ արտահայտություններ կբրբդե և լույս կբերե։ Mr. Keleshian is an electrical engineer, a pioneer entrepreneur in the field of IT technology and global high-tech business developer with expertise in wireless tracking and monitoring, supply chain logistics, and remote continuous asset management technologies. Mr. Keleshian has extensive experience with key US DoD global operations as well as commercial applications. An նաև մարդկության օժանդակություն բերող ամերիկյան մեր կառավարության և անոր ժողովրդին գլխավորապես Near East Relief գազམ་ագերբության մասին 9 տարիներու ընթացքին հետազոտական աշխատանքներով մեջտեղ գբերավ անոնց օգնությամբ ազատված հազարավոր հայ աղետյալ մանուկները 1915-ի չարթեն բրձած և այդ հավաքույթը հավաքած է իր կդած բոլոր բեղումները և մեր Օսմանյան չարթերեն ազատված բոլոր դերակցություններում մասնակետ հետազոտիչ եղած է։ Պարոն Քելեշյան իր վերջին հետազոտություններով կդավ 2 որբանոցներ Լիբանանի մեջ մասնավորապես։ Մեկը անթուրա, ուր 1915-1918 մոտ 2000 որբեր գտրկացվեին Ջեմալ Փաշայի և Հալեվի Էդիվարի կողմեն։ Ուրիշ որբանոց մնալ կդավ Ղազիրի մեջ, ուր 1925-ին in Golden Room Gratitude կամ The Orphan Rug Cork հյուսված էր հայ որբացած աղջիկներու միջոցով և ղրգված ամերիկյան նախագահին Calvin Coolidge-ի որբեսի ցուցադրվեր սպիտակ մեջ։ In addition, Mr. Keleshan is an independent investigator, researcher, passionate about finding untold stories of courageous expression and service to humanity, especially by the US government, its people, and the Near East Relief Organization that became the catalyst for the survival of hundreds of thousands of Armenian victims between 1915 and 1930. His most recent discoveries include 2 orphanages in Lebanon, one in Antura, where between 1915 and 1918, around 2,000 orphans were being Turkified by Jamal Pasha and Halide Edip Adivar, and another orphanage in Khazir, where in 1925, in Golden Rule gratitude special rug was woven by the orphans and sent to the US President Calvin Coolidge to be displayed at the White House. I am very happy to tell you that in November, the same rug will be displayed one more time at the White House for a few days, and Mr. Keleshan is going to explain that. Շրջանային Emmy Award-ի տեխնացու վավերական ֆիլմի Orphans of the Genocide ղեկավարության բարոն Բարեդ Մարոնյանի հետևած է մեր բարոն Միսակ Քելեշյանի անխոնջ հետազոտությամբ եւ հայտնաբերումներով։ Իր ամենաարժեքավոր գործը եղավ հսկայական աշխատանքներով մեջտեղ բերել Near East Relief-ի աննախընթաց օգնությունը հայասկին, ազատելու հազարավոր որբեր հայկական ցեղասպանութենեն եւ այս պիտի մեր այսօրվա նյութը։ Regional Emmy Award nominated documentary Orphans of the Genocide, directed by Mr. Baret Maronian, followed Misak Keleshyan's ardent research and findings. His investigative visual work regarding colossal assistance and the unprecedented aid to the Armenian survivors by the Near East Relief Company. It remains to be one of the most valuable work. Mr. Misak Keleshyan.
Thank you very much for the invitation, and thank you for all the information and background. An unprecedented commitment and dedication of a nation that helped rescue and empower a generation of Armenian survivors between 1915 and 1930. My presentation is going to be in English, and after you can have your questions and I can help you in different languages. This is a humanitarian journey. January 1915, Talat Pasha, the Turkish Interior Minister, declares there is room only for Turks in Turkey. New York Times. That means the enemies have been identified. April 24, 1915, American embassy in Turkey is alarmed by the arrest and imprisonment of over 200 Armenian intellectuals. US Ambassador Morgenthau intercedes, reports a great uneasiness over treatment of Armenians. But Ambassador Morgenthau specifies something very important. On September in 1915, he sends a telegram to the US Department of State saying, destruction of Armenian race in Turkey is progressing rapidly. This is the first time when the genocide word was not coined by Raphael Lemkin, who coined it in 1948. In 1915, the US ambassador uses the destruction of Armenian race. And then he suggests Cleveland Dodd, Charles Crane, John Mott, Stephen Wise, a rabbi, and others to form a committee to raise funds and provide means to save the Armenians. This telegram was very important The committee was mainly composed of multi-religious prominent Americans as well as American Board of Foreign Commissioners who were already operating in Anatolia. The committee, in 2 weeks' time, they raised 100,000 US dollars of that time. And the committee was named ACASR, short for American Committee for Armenian and Syrian Relief. The men who met in New York City on September 16, in answer to Ambassador Henry Morgenthal's call, were an impressive group. James Levi Barton, Congressional Minister in 1885. Cleveland Dodge, famous Dodge family, had been at work in the missionary field for 3 generations. Attending Princeton, the young Cleveland Dodge met his classmate, President Woodrow Wilson. They were the heart and soul of American Committee of Armenian and Syrian Relief. In 1918, the Committee for Armenian Syrian Relief was renamed into American Committee for Relief in the Near East. But in 1919, by act of US Congress, the name of the American Committee was incorporated and called Near East Relief, NER for short. Initially, their efforts was focused on rescue. Children were waiting in the snow for admission in the orphan city, a daily scene from early morning until late night. One would look into this picture and ask, where are the parents? Why are there so many orphans? NER original photographs, and on the side it reads, rescued girls in NER homes, meaning rescued from harems. As you can see, the truck with the Red Cross and Near East Relief ambulance. These are the faces of those orphans who were not rescued. A snapshot on May 15, 1923, the nationality of Near East Relief orphans. Look at the difference. It's almost over 71% are Armenians. Greeks were 13%, miscellaneous 11%, Syrian, meaning Lebanese at that time, 1.9%, Assyrians 1.4%, Jewish less than 1%. Yes, it was World War I. There were a lot of orphans. But why is it that this race, the Armenian race, is over 71%? Something different happened to this race. We, the people, the commitment of the US government and its citizens. 3 consecutive US presidents and their families appealed to help Armenians survive. President Wilson, President Harding, President Coolidge. Over 15 years, a commitment. The US government was committed to help. US President Wilson, August 31, 1916, a proclamation. President Harding appeals for the Near East Relief. President Coolidge declares the Golden Rule Sunday. The Golden Rule Sunday was between Christmas and Thanksgiving, the first Sunday where American citizens were encouraged, instead of eating their lavish dinner, spending that kind of money, they were supposed to eat orphanage food, and the difference, donate to Near East Relief. The Silver Star of Near East Relief became America's Star of Hope. A lot of campaign to raise $30 million. The posters were not merely artistic drawings, but a reflection of reality. Meaning, the artist who drew this mother with the baby on the back, it was not an imagination. The real raped Armenian mother was really there. An actual photo of an Armenian survivor and their child in despair. Look at the photo. Look at the mother and the child in the back. Look at the details. Posters. You won't let me starve, will you? I am little Shushan from Armenia. My home has been destroyed. Father was taken away. Mother starved because she gave me all the food. I am so hungry and cold. Thousands of other children are hungry and cold too. These were not Armenian nationalistic posters. These were pure American posters. Look at the one on the right side. Uncle Sam's job, Armenia and Syria. How relevant after 100 years today. The call to buy Liberty bonds was considered symbol of patriotic duty. You can see Armenians, Syrian, Greeks, 2.5 million starving. They shall not perish. The life of an Armenian child is in your hands. Do your part when you are asked to give. American Committee for Relief in the Near East. As if the Statue of Liberty has taken the sword instead of the torch, and she has wrapped the Armenian orphan within the American flag, saying that if need be, I will use the sword. Stamps were printed. This stamp buys a meal for starving Armenian children. I mean, I haven't even seen in Armenian newspapers so many times Armenian is repeated in so many posters, so many stamps, and so forth. Look at this picture. Uncle Sam protecting Armenian orphans on the plains of Ararat, with ruined churches in the background. You see Mount Ararat in the back and ruined Armenian church. Celebrities like Charlie Chaplin and the kid who played in there. Jackie Coogan. You wouldn't remember who Jackie Coogan is. He's Uncle Fester in Adam's Family. When he was a kid, he was campaigning to collect over 1 million condensed milk cans. So you see on the left side, he's doing that, and in Los Angeles, California, the Kiwanis are helping the children, and you see Jackie Coogan standing up, the kid. Even Hollywood stars participated in eating orphanage food on Golden Rule dinner. These were Hollywood stars of the day. Motion pictures were produced. Ravished Armenia, Aurora Mardiganians. Even Alice in Hungerland. They had converted Alice in Wonderland into Alice in Hungerland, showing how starving Armenians, Alice wearing American clothes, going around and feeding them, and many other short films as well. This is Ravished Armenia, the poster. We see Alice in Hungerland, where Alice is feeding Armenian children. Look at the difference of the rags that Armenian orphans were wearing and Alice. After, rescuing them, then it was sustenance to continue this. It's not by saving it's done. Between 1919 and 20, an average of 333,000 people were fed daily. 40 hospitals were built. Over 132,556 Armenian children scattered and placed in several orphanages across the Middle East were housed, fed, and provided with medical care. The original $30 million target was almost quadrupled to 120 million, the equivalent of $3 billion in today's dollar. That is an enormous amount. Even camels were used. Look, on the camel it's written American Near East Relief. moving into the deserts, cargo, logistics. Near East charter ships were moving from the Pacific coast to Constantinople to save the orphans in Anatolia. 12 carloads donations of Michigan effort to aid Armenian survivors. You're noticing it was not one state. It was the government, the US nation, all around, from side to side. 25 tons of clothing. Dr. Wilburn, chairman, California State Committee at that time, and then he became the Secretary of Navy. Bundled clothing. American people's overwhelming response to the campaign. Look at this. In 1921, earning in America to give in Armenian. On the left side, you see children encouraged to sell lemonade, fudge, popcorn, and peanuts to donate to Near East relief. So here we have the government, Congress, Senate, US people, and even children involved. Children with disabilities lined up to donate for Near East relief. Look at this in New Jersey. They had their piggy banks in their hands, lined up to donate. Show me any cause now in the United States where you see disabled people lined up to donate their pennies from their piggy banks. Mayor Edward Brown of Seattle wears only a barrel after donating his clothes. Show me a politician who would do that today. For any cause. Members of Lions Club, Rochester, New York, after donating their clothing to Near East relief, going back in barrels. From the youngest to the elderly, each one was doing their part. They became foster parents of orphans whose parents were systematically killed. 850 orphans in one orphanage in Bakuba, Iraq. First ladies, Wilson, Harding, adopted Armenian orphans. Then started the healing process, as the children were saved initially. Then they were fed. Then they were cured from their illnesses. Then the healing part from those traumas. There was tremendous trachoma, which is sickness in the eye, where it's very contagious and it leads to blindness. This is a hospital in Gyumri, Armenia, which used to be Alexandropol. Look at it, it says Trachoma Hospital. But take a good look. Look at the kids lined up, waiting in line for their eyelids to be opened and scratched so that trachoma doesn't. Have you ever seen such a long line of kids in your life? An orphanage which had 30,000 orphans. American doctors, women doctors, who were not allowed to serve in US Army, they volunteered, AWF, the American Women's Hospital, AWH, and this is Dr. Mabel Elliott, looking after 30,000 orphans in Gyumri. The picture of the orphan says it all. Award in one of the 36 Near East relief hospitals. There weren't enough nurses, so Armenian girls who were educated in colleges and stuff in Anatolia, they were put together and made an army of, army of nurses against diseases, taught by the Near East Relief and American doctors. You see their bags and their badges on their left hands with the silver star, which is the NER logo. They gave hope and courage after they have lost their parents. They were encouraged by Karen Yeppe, a Danish missionary. Wedding ceremonies, to encourage after 16, 18 so that they can marry and build Armenian families back again. And then they were empowered in self-reliance. The orphans were provided with vocational skills and training to help them become self-sufficient as they grew. These programs included tools for self-sufficiency to the blind and disabled, hands-on training on agriculture, farming, masonry, carpentry, mechanics, shoemaking, shipbuilding, bakery, tailoring, nursing, barbering. As they say, instead of giving them a fish as they are hungry, feed them for a couple of hours, they taught them how to fish so they can take care of themselves for life. Even boys were re-knitting their stockings for the winter. Girls were taught on American Singer sewing machines. Boys were taught shoemaking as shoemakers, bookbinding, sewing, relearning embroidery, an Armenian tradition, metalworking and forging. Even US tractors were sent to Armenia. At that time, until 1929, even under the Soviet Union, under the communists, these American farming tools were taught to Armenians. They were taught how to feed themselves, bringing back the sense of accomplishment and joy, where you see them planting potatoes, cabbages, and so forth. Passing on the love given to them by Near East relief workers. You see here these tricycles, wooden tricycles inside them, south of Lebanon. The Antelias orphanage carpenter boys, the older ones, did these tricycles and given to the kids inside as bird's nest so they can. So one is learning to be a carpenter, passing love to the little ones. This was not done by the kids alone. It was taught with American mentality, American direction. And here we come to a romance of a rug, the gift of gratitude. Elizabeth and Jacob Kunstler, who were the directors of Near East Relief workers, Papa and Mama as they were called, in Ghazir orphanage. Mr. Weiser, another Swiss missionary as well, teaching Braille to Armenian blind because they contracted trachoma and they didn't, survive it. This is the orphanage where 1,400 girls in Ghazir. There's a little water fountain here that you see, where the mouse shows, and the arches. As they became 16-year-old, they were obligated, or orphans, to leave the orphanages. But what were girls at the age of 16 were going to do if they left the orphanages? Different language. They came from Anatolia. They spoke Ottoman, the Turkish. Lebanon, they speak Arabic. It's different. So Papa Kunstler taught, instead of letting the girls just go and be maids and be abused in houses because they didn't have families and all that, he taught his friend from Urfa, suggested that why don't we teach them how to weave rugs and carpets. This is how it started, the idea. They got the money, they asked for $1,000 to buy 10 looms to weave carpets. Near East Relief, as a pilot, they gave them only $400, so they bought 4 weaving looms. They started taking the wool, dyeing them different colors. They started weaving the carpets. The girls were taught by the carpet master. And then it became an industry. Between 1923 and about 1930s, 3,254 rugs were produced from these Ghazir orphanage girls. Here they are, working at the And you can see there are many looms now, because then later on the budget was $25,000 for that, producing rugs and selling them. And one of those rugs, 7 girls for 10 months, they wove the largest carpet of the time, and they donated as a gratitude and sent it to United States on December 5th. And this is where you see in the White House the carpet where President Calvin Coolidge is standing on, and Dr. Finley, the Near East Relief, who became later on as well, he became the New York Times editor, showing the work of the Armenian orphan girls all the way from Ghazir, crossing 2 oceans, the Mediterranean, the sea, and then the Atlantic, and serving in the White House. This is the carpet that you're hearing in these last few days. And that's going to be shown between November 18 and 23. But what a shame. 5 days, these Americans who left the comfort of their homes, went across the oceans. They served as guides, parents to these children. This vocation, this love that they gave to all these orphans. The White House is ashamed to show it only for 5 days. This is the social history of American history that is golden pages that are forgotten. Look at this page, the picture. On the right, you see where the rug is hanging before it was shipped to the White House. And here it is on the left, where I found the same exact building where that rug was hanging from. You look at the windows, the arches at the back, between the right and left. And now, and every time I go, I photograph this, and I'm going there on Monday. This building with the arches that you see in the bottom, where it was hanging in 1925, the rug, now it has become a bank. And this is the one with the arches. 2 of the girls, the original 7 girls, they came to Philadelphia because Near East Relief was raising money. They brought in 1 loom with them, and they were weaving carpet to show people how little fingers can produce such beautiful pictures and oriental rugs. So they could raise money. And then the Reverend suggested to meet these 2 girls so that they can meet the First Lady, President Calvin Coolidge's wife. And they went to the White House, and they gave her a handkerchief. And this is a 1926 Washington Post article, by the way. And you see Gülena Kehiayan and Vartuhi Hovsepian. At that time, they were 14 and 15-year-old. And the First Lady asked them that if they want to stay in the United States, since they didn't have anybody already, family back, they accepted and they became US citizens. But Vartuhi Hovsepian, in 1986, 60 years later, she is sitting in the White House on that carpet rug, okay? In 1986, Hillary Clinton, at that time, President Clinton's wife, allowed that orphan rug to be displayed, and Vartuhi, who 60 years ago, with her little fingers worked on it, she was able to sit on the same carpet. Shameful act, déjà vu. As in 1915, Interior Minister, he said, no room for Turkey for Christians, except Turks. The following Republican Turkey by Kemal Atatürk, Kemalist instructions, all Christians must evacuate Turkish territory, has caused general deportation from Anatolia to Aleppo. You see, in 1918, when they lost the World War I, the Allies, the British and the French, returned to Cilicia and to Turkey and Anatolia, there were a lot of orphanages that the Americans were taking care of them within Turkey. But after 1922, at the end of 1922, early 23, when Mustafa Kemal, the Republican Turkey, today's Turkey, they kicked all the Christians out, including the Americans. Henry Justin Allen, governor of Kansas and later US Senator from Kansas, following Mustafa Kemal's order to evacuate and deport Christians, Henry Allen, a board of trustees from NER, saw no prospect for Near East Relief organization in Turkey. NER offices and workers being harassed as seen as Western agents. Sounds familiar, right? Western agents. Isn't it happening today when we hear all this? Western relief workers beheaded, killed, even 100 years, same patterns? Sound familiar? American investments and assets, churches, orphanages, all their assets were confiscated by the Turkish government, one after the other. Even American physicians were required to be licensed by Turkish medical institutions to be eligible to work in Anatolia. Basically, they were practicing and doing all kinds of pressure so that the Americans would leave. And this is what happened. In the dark area where you see is where they were, different orphanages were operating within Turkey. As they were kicked out, the Americans and the Armenians, the orphans I mean, and the Greeks, and the Assyrians, but majority Armenians, they were obligated to move out of Turkey. And this is a Near East relief map. From here, they moved to Armenia and northern Iran, to Syria, Lebanon, Palestine at that time, Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, and then to Turkey, to Greece. Thousands of orphans were moved into Greece, different islands, Syria, Lebanon, most of the Middle East Armenian diaspora was moved out there. And who the hell moved them? Was the Near East Relief. The kids didn't know, they didn't know their parents. Some of them forgot their names. Batches and batches, some in boats, some in ships, some on mules, some on camels, some on walking. Thousands of people got moved. Here we are, from Istanbul. Children were being deported. But look at them. They have their hats, they have their boots, their bags, all donated by American people. From 1922 to 23, Near East Relief evacuated 22,000 children from orphanages. Papa Kunzler, the Swiss missionary who was working for Near East Relief, he took 825 kilometers or 513 miles trip on mules, and these children, as you see them, this is, the top part is while they're passing through Aleppo, and the other part is on mules and donkeys which have boxes, where the little ones were sitting in the boxes. And as they get tired, they switch the others who were walking. So Turkey did not allow them to travel by boat, by ship. So they were obligated to go on foot. And even then, before leaving Turkey, they were harassing the Americans and Near East Relief that these are Muslims, these are Turks, we're not going to leave them exit papers. And I mean, can you imagine the trauma and all this? Near East Relief was not, it was spearheaded by the Americans, but then it also became global operation. Australasian Orphanage in Antilles. Today's Catholicosat of Cilicia, Great Cilicia of Antilles, was an American orphanage, was taken care of by the Australians. 8,800 miles from Australia all the way to Lebanon to save Armenian orphans. Show me any Armenian who would travel 8,000 miles and serve in Darfur, in I don't know where, Cambodia. How can we forget such people? This is in Antilles. The tents, before the building were built by themselves, New Zealanders and Australians. And this is Antilles today. The church, the Catholicos, this is what it is. So it was like this, and this is how it looks today. Same location. And guess what? They gave it as a theological school after 1930. They bought it for 4,000 British pounds at that time. $10,000 was donated by Near East Relief. And as of today, there is a piece of land that it is still registered under Near East Relief's name. They forgot to register it under the Armenian, Catholicos. The Danish were involved as well. This is the first bird's nest orphanage. Well, the second one actually. The first one is in Mameltein, and the second one is in Seiden. Maria Jacobsen, a nurse, Danish, who was expert in toddlers and babies. 400 of them. This was a Druze chieftain's harem house who went bankrupt, and Near East Relief rented this house and it became an orphanage. And I found it. Look at it on the right today, how it is. It's a villa. Okay? This is how I found it in 2007. On the left you see the plates. They're putting the plates on the floor so they can sit and eat, the children. And now, used to be orphanage, and this is the palace, how it looks today. In 1928, the bird's nest moved from Seiden into Byblos, or in today's Jubail. Maria Jacobsen, the Near East Relief orphanage, the American one in Jubail, then was sold to the Danish, and Maria Jacobsen, who started from Kharpert in Anatolia at the age of 1924, she ended up in 1964, she passed away, and she wanted to stay with her orphans, and she was called Mama. In Kharpert, during 1917, where Americans were not allowed in Anatolia, she was looking after 3,600 kids. I have 3 kids and I can't control them. 3,600 children. She became Mama for many, many, many people. And today in here, Mr. Nishan Kulukian, she became his Mama too. In 1950s, he was in Bird's Nest Orphanage. This is the blessing in 1928. The Bird's Nest in 1929. This is Major Nichols Hall. Also, it's a church. The roof of this was built by the orphans themselves under the guidance of the Americans. I have pictures where the kids with hammers and nails, they're building this. Another one, Nahar Ibrahim, which was ran by Stanley Kerr, who became AUB US professor. He was looking after 634 orphan children. But this one, this orphanage, lasted only 8 months. Look at these buildings. They built them, and then because it was near the river, malaria, the children were, got malaria, and as you can see on the right, they put them in cars and moved them to Jubail and Antilles, and they got quarantined and helped them out so they could survive. This is how Armenians were uprooted from their villas, from their palaces, their husbands killed under the umbrella of their calling them to serve in the Ottoman Empire, army, and women ended up in these shacks in Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Palestine, and other places. And these tin shacks and huts that you see, maybe you won't recognize what they are. These are oil cans. So they cut them and they opened up and they become shingles. These were donated by the oil that America was sending them over. So everything was used or reused back again. Children were started having smiley faces. This is the orphanage in Gyumri. It was called, 30,000 orphans. But if you look around here, see the American flag right here? This is a parade. What is the American flag? Now imagine 30,000 kids. Where are the parents? How come there is such a huge, and these are the ones who survived. We're not talking about the ones who perished away. These had to eat, drink, socks, pants, underwears, calm, you name it. Trachoma, typhus, whatever. Who can control 30,000 children? Just feeding them is a nightmare. While the Americans, the German, the Swiss, the Danish, and others were helping Armenians. Orphanages a la Turkey. Another silent genocide. I was reading a book from Stanley Kerr where Cemal Pasha is standing in front of Antura College, French Antura College in Lebanon. I don't know why, something told me I have to go and see where Cemal Pasha stood up. I had no clue about Antura. My journey started in December 2005. And I remember very well. It was raining, pouring cats and dogs. And the road going up there, I don't know where the college is, am I going to find the place or not? I almost turned back. Then I found out that during World War I, they took the French college, the Turks, Cemal Pasha and Halide Edip. He brought Halide Edip and other 40 women, educated women from Turkey, Istanbul, elite women, to Turkify about 2,000 orphans. The French records said 1,200, but later on I found American and other records saying 2,000 orphans, Armenian boys and girls from age 3 to 14, 15. The boys were circumcised. Their names have changed from Hagop and Vartan into Muhammad and other names. And they were trained to become Ottoman soldiers. Forced to change their names and culture into Turkish. Trained to become Ottoman soldiers. And when they lost the war in 1918 and they ran away, the American Red Cross and the Near East Relief were the ones to arrive first there. This college exists today. There are 5,200 students in that college. It's a very famous college in Lebanon. Stand by them a little longer. Look at this map. This map, headquarters of Near East Relief is here in New York City. The solid lines are where the money went. And the dotted lines, where the money came from to support Near East Relief. Now, in the Armenian community, or in the US, do they know that from Alaska, from Canada, from Japan, from China, from India, from Thailand, from Korea, from Philippines, from Australia, money was sent over to the Armenian orphans? Brazil, Argentina, Cuba, then Liberia, South Africa, Madagascar, Russia, obviously, and then all these European countries. But who has heard that these folks, this is a nearest relief map. There are no Armenians here. This is pure American stuff. Near East became a benchmark of international economic development organizations like the Marshall Plan, Truman's Point 4 program, the US Peace Corps, USAID that exists today, United Nations Development Program, UNDP. Now think of this. US Ambassador Morgenthau sends a telegram asking to build a committee to save the remnants of Armenian children because the destruction of Armenian race is happening. This is in the State Department records. And it ends up to be the leader for USAID, US Peace Corps, and so forth. It had an international branch as well. So we have US, Canada, Australia, Great Britain, Cuba, Switzerland, Danish, French, China, Germany, Czechoslovakia, which split now, Norway, Belgium, Greece, Philippines, Korea, Japan, and obviously Armenia. All US states had Near East relief offices as well as international offices. A royal decree issued by Sharif of Mecca, Hussein bin Ali, declaring Armenians a protected people of Islam, which means this was not only a Christian thing. Sharif of Mecca, Hussein bin Ali, as a Muslim, and he comes from Prophet Muhammad's family, to protect the Armenians. In Syria, tribal leaders like Hashim Pasha and Majid Pasha, they were tribal leaders. They worked with Karen Yepe, who was working under League of Nations and part of Near East Relief as well. They collected women from Bedouins and Kurds and Ottoman harems where families were lost and got Britain. Look at this picture. They denied the Armenian genocide. Look at what this poster says. It's in 1917. It says 600,000 men, women, and children massacred in the middle Armenia, and on the right, 1,200,000 deported and their homes destroyed by Turks and Kurds. Armenian blind girls with Mary Lowell in Jerusalem. Canada sending, flour and grain, where the trains said Western Canada's gives flour to starving Armenian kiddies. Trains who left Western Canada all the way to Louisiana to be loaded on ships and shipped over to the Middle East. Russia had its help as well. We see Hovannes Tumanyan standing up near the nurses. His Holiness blessed the Near East relief work, the Pope, and gave 550,000 lirs. Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, Egypt, Cyprus, Greece, Palestine welcomed thousands of Armenian refugees and gave them safe haven. Over 1,000 Near East volunteers and employees dedicated their lives selflessly to save their lives of Armenian orphans. Over 30 of them who lost their lives while caring for the victims. And here is one of them who there is buried. And every Near East relief worker, when they returned back, they gave them a medal. But the symbol of medal says a lot of things. Near East Relief Medal for faith and selfless service to humanity, which is written on the side. In the middle it's written NER for Near East Relief. And guess what? On top it says 1915. Because it started because Ambassador Morgenthau's telegram, destruction of Armenian race is proceeding rapidly. But look at the back. The logo includes the Islamic crescent here on the left, the Persian lion, because they were also helping in Urmia, the Iranian citizens in Urmia and Assyrians over there. Also they were helping in Ottoman Kurds and Turks as well. And here you see the cedar of Lebanon, and here the Christian cross. But right in the middle, there is no Azak and Mount Ararat. Now show me any Armenian who can come up with such a logo. And this is in Gyumri, where the kids, I think it's about 5,000 of them lined up to give the message, Armenia's message to America as saved. And the following one, in the same location, America, we thank you. This is the Genocide Memorial in Armenia. The Near East Relief Organization and the Armenian Genocide both turned 99 years old, and now we're on the way to 100. Near East Relief ended up in 1930, and it became Near East Foundation, which is currently operating. It helps people in Israel and in Gaza to produce oil from olives, and they work together, Arabs and Israelis. It helps in Sudan. It was trying to open offices in Syria as well, but the war is, and different areas like in Morocco, helping women so they can have their own little businesses. Thank you very much. And so clearly, this is not an Armenian issue. This is an American issue. The orphan drug is the result of these great, great people, nation, presidents, first ladies, kids, disabled children, the young, the elderly, and everything in between. If you have any questions, I would gladly answer.
Thank you very much, Mr. Keleshan, and it's open for discussion.
Can you tell us the year, the first time when the Danish missionary, Maria Jacobsen, who represented the KMA, the Danish, Scandinavian Danish organization, which year was it that the first time that they showed up in historical Armenia, around Harpert?
Well, in historical Armenia, KMA, the Danish and Scandinavian version of the Near East Relief or missionaries, they started arriving because of initially in 1894 to 96 when Hamidian massacres. They started because all Europe stood up that all these massacres and killings, it's too much. So they started at then. But Maria Jacobsen arrived in 1907 in Harpert. She arrived at her age 24 as a nurse to serve under the Near East Relief and the American hospital there. And and the American hospital, which became later on the Near East Relief. In 1907, she arrived there to help all those villages for deliveries, women who would deliver, a lot of them would, for health issues or mismanagement, so she could help them deliver babies. That's what her mission was. And it is amazing for me that somebody from Europe or United States, for that, to come to serve in such a remote area. It took her from Trabzon to Harpet 16 days. I mean, a blonde, blue-eyed lady traveling on a buffalo cart, with a buffalo cart, 16 days to arrive to Harpet to serve. The dedication, the love. She stayed because, Danish was an independent and did not join the Entente of British, French, and the Russians. So they allowed her to stay in Harpert from 1917 all the way to end of 1918. And then she moved with the orphans all the way into Lebanon, and she stayed with there. And you were also another one of them she became your mama too. And this is an amazing story. She could have stayed in Denmark, yet she decided to stay with hundreds and thousands of orphans and serve them and help them become men and women. Yes.
You mentioned that 30 of these American volunteers died. How did they die?
Some of them died from typhus that they inherited from the children that they were taking care of. For example, Papa Kunstler, you saw in the picture, he had 2 arms. Later on in Ghazir, he was treating an orphan, and he got and he fell down, and they had to amputate his right arm. Later on, you see him with 1 arm. So most of them died under disease and stuff, but some of them were also shot as they were passing from Anatolia into Syria. A lot of horsemen and brigands and thieves and stuff just to steal and these were educated professors from Yale and Wisconsin and really educated people.
Once again, my second question, this nationwide massive interest across the United States
Yes.
for Armenia and the Armenians, when is it that this sympathy, strong sympathy that was nationwide, start waning, start kind of receding, start giving up,
Okay.
When is it that these policies start changing?
In 1915 it started because of the famous telegram, and in 1922 Admiral Bristol was assigned as an ambassador and representing the US Navy in Anatolia. He was the smart one who saw how strategic Turkey was and how the Black Sea, the Dardanelles and all that, and the oil and everything else. So he started supporting the business side of things, where the Rockefellers got involved. The Rockefellers gave money to Near East Relief, but then they were also, I think it was called from New Jersey, Standard Oil, and he was helping business people, the Singer, the life insurances, all the American businesses. So while he was seeing the tragedy of what is happening to Armenians and to the Christians, but he was like covering it up. And from 1922 and on, even he had issues with the missionaries who were like from the 1830s, 40s there, who had massive assets, and the Near East Relief. They even tried to impeach him from his post, but they failed, unfortunately. It is from that 1921 and 2 and on that the policy shifted into business, politics, as opposed to philanthropy. And because a movement like this across the US, across the world, it's not by just word, it's just all these to acknowledge, to see that even they were, like President Wilson was trying to make a mandate of Armenia to save it and give it a larger border, access to the sea and stuff. So to my mind, Admiral Bristol was the one who shifted the policy from philanthropy, religious help, into seeing, and we see it today. I mean, the Incirlik, US base, we see Turkey watching while Kobani is going with the Kurds, going through almost exactly the same thing. The fanaticism of Islamists that has happened, beheading, cutting, killing, slaving, raping, these are not new to us. 100 years ago, it happens to our forefathers, to our grand-sisters and grand-grandparents and the like. That's why we lost almost 1.5 million of our ancestors. So I would say that Admiral Bristol was the one who changed the policy. Last question. Yes.
It's similar in mind to the policy right now. Can you update the current policy? Because the U.S. seems to have problem with definition of Armenian genocide.
The reason is that there is so much material. He American archives at its own. I'm not bringing any British, French, Germans who were allies with the Turks at that time, or the Ottoman Turks. There is massive archives that it is way beyond the word genocide. But because Turkey, as I said, it's a strategic ally, okay? The Black Sea to stop Soviet Union, for so many years. And also the largest, NATO army, Muslim army, Islamic country. So strategically is needed. And anything which has to do with the Armenian genocide is a political thing. It's not that if it happened or it didn't happen. And I don't want to ask you for mercy to accept or not accept. It's way beyond exception. It is a political act. For example, President Obama, when he was a senator, he's on tape, I mean, he's on video, admitting all that, yes, and it should be this and this and this. But as soon as he became a president, the State Department and the stuff that, the politics that is involved, because of an ally, and you can lose an ally, but again, think of it, 2 Iraqi wars, NATO ally didn't allow US, you know how much taxpayers' money we had to pay for the United States to go from the other way, from the Gulf, and this instead of just coming from north of Iraq? I mean, I am involved in, defense things, and I've been in Kuwait, and I know all that stuff. It's billions and billions and risking, and I don't know, maybe a lot of Americans, died because of that mismanagement. But because it's a strategic ally, and they don't want to lose an ally, and it's like Hosni Mubarak, we supported him forever with all this and that until the day came and they changed color. So this is politics, geopolitics actually. All right, thank you very much.
Եվ ցեզի, որ եկաք եւ ցեր ներկայացում քաշալեցիք ցերնարկը։ Շնորհակալ եմ։